Your career journey probably won't look like anyone else's, and that's exactly what makes it interesting. Welcome to Tallo Real Careers, Real Journeys, where we explore the twists and turns that lead people to where they are today. I'm excited to introduce Benjamin and hear their path from students to realtor. Benjamin, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, just to jump in, what does your typical workday look like?
It is quite different every day, actually. I am a real estate agent in New York and Connecticut, so it could be traveling from one state to the other and seeing as many places as I can during the day, especially if I'm working with people that have relatively similar locations of interest or that kind of line up with where I need to be. Or it could be like today, for example, where I'm going to be in the office all day long, making calls, emails, trying to set up new appointments, creating reports on estimated home values, all that kind of stuff to kind of do the more administrative aspects of the job. But definitely very different every day, which is one of my favorite things about it.
That's always good. I always like an environment where it's always different because it feels more exciting instead of just like your day to day in the office and doing the same basic things. So I really like
Yeah,
that work
for sure.
environment.
Yeah.
So going back into like the work environment, what kind of personalities strive in your field?
Definitely the most outgoing, sociable, ready to talk to anybody about anything type of personality, I think. Because as much as it is very much part of the job as a real estate agent to sell the house and help people to buy a house, obviously that's what most people think of. The real core of it and the day to day of it is the relationship building with the people whose houses we want to sell or who we want to help buy a house, because it is 100% commission based the majority of the time. So without the connections and without the relationships with homeowners, home buyers, landlords, tenants, etc., there's nothing for us to do and there's no money to be made. So definitely, I think strong communicators, people that have a lot of maybe different types of connect with a lot of different types of people, very outgoing, kind of just ready to take on a new challenge all day, every day, basically.
Just be ready for anything, basically.
Yeah, which is a bit of a big statement, but something like that.
So I know you're a realtor, so I'm pretty sure I know where this next question is gonna head, but what does your role contribute to something bigger? Like, what's your biggest impact you've ever made?
That's such a good question, and that's also one of the main reasons that I wanted to do this job because in my previous full-time career, which was very short-lived before I became a real estate agent, I felt like I was more so just completing tasks one at a time, but not really feeling too much of a direct impact. Where really every single thing that I do in this job, I can see either the direct impact or how it's leading up towards the direct impact. I think that one of the most rewarding things for me has been helping people find a home even more so than selling a home. I think in both cases, really what it is helping people get towards the next chapter of their life, whether it's some super simple, just across town and, 100 square feet bigger, something that's really minimal, or just a really big change in their life circumstances. I've had a few circumstances in particular where I've worked with people that are new to the country, and in that case in particular it's especially overwhelming because not only are you not familiar with the home buying process in general, but you're not familiar with English language or how to even read a contract or how it's structured or just a lot of things that even for an English speaker, because I speak Spanish as well, probably would have been good to mention, even for an English speaker would be difficult at times. So I think that the most impactful situations of mine have been situations where I can help people understand the process, as I often do with part of this job, but to really establish a home for themselves, for their family, be able to see their kids feeling more comfortable making friends in the community. I often stay in touch with clients and we'll go to their kids' birthdays party or
Mhm.
to their baptism, to their weddings, etc. And I've only been doing this for almost 4 years now, but I've already had kind of those moments that are almost more so after the transaction that you kind of really see the impact firsthand that it's had in being able to continue to establish their lives here. But it's super rewarding to just be able to really be the center of their lives because if you don't have a home and somewhere you feel comfortable, it's really hard to do anything really beyond that.
That's really true. Wow. So you're not only making an impact, you're helping them with their life journeys and making lasting relationships. Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
So going into life journeys, what did you study in school and how did it prepare you for this role?
That's a good question because to be a real estate agent, technically, you only need the real estate license, which varies by state, how many hours and what type of course. But I absolutely think that my college education has played a huge role in my success in just being able to carry out a lot of the functions of this job. I was a double major and a minor. The minor was psychology, which okay, maybe a little bit of mind reading here and there, but that was more so just for fun. But my two majors were communications and public relations. That was one, and then the other one was Spanish. So I did not grow up speaking Spanish at all. I took it, all through middle school, high school, etc., but was kind of on the line as far as being able to actually speak it. But in college, I was able to really dive into it, especially with my year abroad in Madrid in Spain, where we're talking with host families in every restaurant, every store, all of our classes, literally everything was in Spanish. So it was super, super, honestly, life-changing because probably about half and half of my business is English Spanish, and that's just an entire sector of people that I would not have just simply would not have been able to physically connect with if I had not learned Spanish to the extent that I did in college. And obviously that goes for financially as well. That'd be half of the income that I'd be able to generate theoretically. So that was hugely impactful. On the other side was public relations. And we have, like I said, there is a lot of being outgoing, being personable, being sociable. There is a lot of that kind of gets you in the door. But I work for Keller Williams Realty, and we actually have a term in our president or founder or co-founder of Keller Williams has a book called Millionaire Real Estate Agent where he mentions we have a natural ceiling, and that term kind of just refers to like basically what it aims to say is like there's only so far that you can go based off of your talent and kind of natural abilities before you kind of have to take a look at systems and models and really kind of dive into more so the business sense and kind of really building on that natural ability to get further. And so being a communications major, I just learned so much more about forming structured systematic communication campaigns, connecting with people in a very systematic and strategic way, not just, going on Facebook and liking everybody's posts or hanging out at, downtown and saying hi to people. There is so much more to it than that, especially once you have a foundation and you have hundreds, thousands of people that you want to keep up with. It was something that I was able to apply, not necessarily for a company, in the sense that maybe I thought I would at the time in studying public relations, but for myself. And I really am, realtors, we really are our own mini business, whether we work for ourselves or for a brokerage. It all comes down to, our individual efforts and time. So definitely super, super helpful in doing all that.
I like how both of those skills that you mentioned are things that you can use in any job. Whether even in your personal life, you can use Spanish and communication is
Yeah.
needed anywhere as well. So that's awesome. And I need to look into that too because I want to learn a new language one day.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Never too late to start. I don't think, at least.
What opportunities are there to grow or specialize in your field?
There is like literally unlimited opportunity to grow in this field because with being 100% commission based, it's very stressful because if you are not producing and not closing any deals, then you're not making any money and that is not fun. But at the same time, with that being the case, there's no set salary that you're maxed at, and there's no set, maybe I'll get a $5,000 raise this year, $5,000 raise next year. So there's no minimum, which is very stressful, but there's also no maximum. So the more people that you connect with and the more people who refer their, cousins, friends, sister, etc., just, people that they are connected with, the more opportunities that you have to continue to make connections, continue to do business, put your name out there, and obviously to make more money. We do have certain designations as far as being a real estate salesperson is the first level, and then the next level up above that is being a broker. So business wise and money wise and connection wise, there's that's a little bit more abstract, and there's you can go as far as that what you want. But within real estate, we do have those designations for agents. And then we also have a ton of administrative staff in our office as well as in the regional and corporate offices. So a lot of agents, once they've established themselves, will become team leaders, they call them, and will be sort of more administrative roles where they're, doing a lot of the creating of the opportunities, a lot of the, management of the office and the new employees, etc. There's people that do the marketing for our whole brokerage. There's people that are, in charge of tech training. So there's all kinds of roles that you can kind of take on the administrative side as well, if that's something that, is of interest at any point, which it may be for me too down the line. We'll see.
That's really interesting. So jumping into the next question, are there any specific certifications that helped you get started or stand out?
To stand out, I would say my degree definitely does, as far as, me wanting to definitely make sure everybody's aware of that. Did I need, as far as, will anyone need a degree of a specific type to get their license? Not necessarily, but as far as me being able to say to prospective clients that I have a degree in communications and public relations as well as in Spanish, I think it does instill like a certain level of confidence. Aside from that, you definitely do need a real estate license, which varies significantly from state to state. But in New York and Connecticut, it's about 70 to 75 hour course that you can take, usually in person or online. And there's a state test as well as a test with the school, and then there's a supervised test. So in total, there's three tests, so it's pretty legit still, just compared to obviously a 4 year college degree. It's not quite as involved, but so you definitely need to have at a minimum the real estate license. But any additional education that you have, as long as it's in some way relevant, which I'm sure many would be, definitely I would imagine help you to stand out as well.
Okay, awesome. So, what's the hardest part of your job and how do you handle it?
The hardest part of the job is definitely staying motivated when you are in those in between moments, in between big sales or big closings. Because when you get a big check or a check in general, it's very easy to say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing well. Let me just kind of coast on this for a little bit. And you kind of just forget. Or if you have so many people that you're working with at once, you kind of forget to continue to generate business in the background. You kind of just like, oh, I'm working on these three, four, five, six things. But then once everything closed, it's like, okay, you reset all over again. So I think just staying motivated, staying focused, especially knowing that it is such an individual based field. There's not necessarily a direct supervisor or boss that's going to be checking your progress or saying, hey, make sure you're working on this, make sure you're working on this. So just really staying ahead of your own, self, I guess, managing yourself to be sure that you're continuing to do those day-to-day, calls, check-ins, social media posts, executing all those campaigns that you have to put yourself in front of people and not just get caught up in the day-to-day business that you're doing and, end up without any business because of that.
Definitely. I feel like a commission-based job would be very stressful. I don't
Yes.
know if I could handle that. So, what advice would you give someone just starting out in your field?
I think my advice would be definitely to not at all be too hard on yourself toward the beginning, and also not to compare yourself to others at the beginning, because I mean, I'm sure this is the case with many careers, but it's so easy to jump into an environment where you're seeing people that have been working for 20, 30, 40 years in this field. And given that, like I had mentioned earlier, the foundation of being successful in this field is the relationships, not necessarily the knowledge and the know-how, although certainly you need that as well. It does take time to develop those relationships, even if it's people that you've known, your entire life. They know you as a friend and not as a real estate agent and not as a professional. So just being able to get that across to people and kind of get people to start thinking of you as that, as well as their friend, cousin, whatever it is. But it definitely does turn out okay after time if you continue to put that effort in, because obviously, like I mentioned, these people that have been doing it 20, 30, 40 years, they had only been doing it for 1 year or 1 month when they started as well. So just kind of staying grounded and keep making that effort regardless of, you know, what everyone else is doing.
I like that. So, what's the biggest myth or misunderstanding that people have about your job?
That's a good one. I think that would be probably that we don't do any work. I think a lot of people, especially when it's a competitive market, think of the real estate agent as just like the shiny face that stands in front of the house and opens the door, and everything else takes care of itself. But there really is so much to navigate as far as financing, inspections, contracts. Just there's so much to it that people don't really think about or don't know about, that happens behind the scenes to actually facilitate the sale of a property, especially once you're talking about more complicated situations, whether it's co-ops where there's several hundred page board applications, or you're doing multifamily investment properties where you're navigating maybe 12 different people to get a showing scheduled. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes, and obviously, again, to the fact that you have to generate the business to begin with, because as much as I would love it if it were the case, people are not just lining up saying, "Hey, can you sell my house? Can you sell my house?" So you really have to make a very decisive effort to acquire those clients and deals to begin with before you even get started on all of that, administrative work that I mentioned. So there's quite a bit more than I think people think goes into it day to day.
Definitely. So, next question is, what's something about your job that would surprise most people?
I think probably something that may surprise you is that there is a lot of um alone time maybe as well, because again, when you see and think of a real estate agent, it's probably usually in the context of seeing them doing an open house, or seeing them post on social media where they're doing tours of houses with their clients or something like that. So I feel like a lot of people think it's always on the go, and there is a lot of that, a lot of, talking with people, networking, showing houses. But there's also a lot of time like now where I'm just sitting alone in the office because I need to set up showings for my clients. I need to identify new listings of interest for buyers. I need to start getting, everything put together to, all the disclosures, the listing contract. We have a million different legal riders that we have to include. So kind of just stuff that is not really that fun per se, but does need to get done in order to do all of the fun stuff or to follow the fun stuff. And by fun stuff, I mean the actual what I mentioned, looking at the houses and walking people through homes, all the kind of the more floofy aspect that people think of. So yeah, I think people would be surprised by how much we do have to actually sit down and do office work, as well as all of the more showy aspect as well.
I was gonna say, last question, how did your career grow or change since you started?
Oh, so much. I the probably on paper it has grown in the sense that I've become licensed in Connecticut as well as New York, and so I do work the two states now. But beyond that, I think I've just grown more into a well-rounded professional that's able to handle just about all types of real estate transactions. At first, there's just so much to take on that it feels very overwhelming. And that I remember saying, even if someone did come to say, sell my house right now, I don't even know that I would have known how to do it. So there is so much that you need to absorb that at the beginning. I was working mostly just with tenants looking for apartments to rent, and then I started working with landlords as well and identifying and screening tenants. And then I started working with buyers, and then I started working with sellers, and then I started doing investors and commercial. And there's just you could make a career out of just any one of those. So I think being able to handle all different types of situations based on the potential clients' needs has been the biggest area or sector of growth, because technically I have the same license now that I had 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but what I'm doing with that license is definitely to a lot bigger of a scale.